And speaking of hockey, let's try this again. And speaking of hockey,
hello out there, we're on the air, it's hockey night tonight.
Thank you, Stompin' Tom. That is one of the great sports songs, if you haven't heard it. The hockey song by Stompin' Tom. Oh, yeah, that's the best. Let's go a little bit more with this one. I just love this here.
Here's at the good old hockey game. Oh, the good old hockey game is the best game you can name. And the best game you can name is the good old hockey game.
Prior to this, Stompin' Tom's most famous song was about potatoes, I believe. So, who says we don't play classic country here on 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities anymore? Here we go.
Like bumblebees, they travel like a burning flame. With shields lined up on inside, it's a 1-1 hockey game.
Oh, the good old hockey game.
Is the best game you can name. And the best game you can name is the good old hockey game.
There you go. There you go. Okay. Predators. We were the first radio station in this market to ever broadcast a hockey game last year. NHL All-Star Game went all the way through the Stanley Cup. Predators were in it, really got a lot of attention for us. And it was fantastic. I mean, I can't tell you. And I was so happy because nobody else, and especially because I played the Penguins, so I had so many people from Pittsburgh, and for that matter, Nashville. And by the way, tomorrow, Alex Doherty of OnTheForecheck.com will join us talking a little bit more about the Predators, because I think there's a market for it, and I want to be the guy that capitalizes on it. And with this said, you know what happened last night in Nashville? Stompin', Tom, you gotta let it go here. Okay, we love your song, but you know, next time we can get it ourselves. Thank you. Okay, you know what happened in Nashville last night against the top team in the Western Conference? And by the way, yeah, who was it that said the Vegas Golden Knights would be good because they had Fleury and Neal? Who said that? Oh yeah, that was me.
Predators come up ice. Yarncroft across the line. On the right wing, his shot goes wide. Fiala to the left board. Now Sissons. Sissons off the right board. Subban's shot deflected away. Rebound. Kevin Fiala scores. Kevin Fiala gives the Predators the first goal of the night. 8 minutes into the third period.
And to me, it was a real big surprise because if you watched the game, you saw Marc-Andre Fleury absolutely robbing Jeff Sissons in the third period with what is called a reverse pad stack. And being radio, I'm just going to have to explain this. It's a pad save in which he threw his entire body to the shot. He had to actually change his momentum, did Marc-Andre Fleury of the Vegas Golden Knights, and change his momentum. And literally while he's leaning to his right, just let his feet go out from him and kick out to the left, and that prevented Sissons from scoring just 3 minutes before. And after he made that save, you had to be thinking, oh my good, that's the momentum right there. After all, Golden Knights, they outshot the Predators 43-27. And for that matter, you had to ask yourself, why is UC Saros in there instead of Pekka Rinne? What's up with that? Why would you start, biggest game of the year, and you're going with the backup goalie after a half a week off? Didn't seem to make any sense. Turned out to be the right move. 43 saves for Saros. Predators win 1-0. And maybe, just maybe, an Achilles heel showing up for the Vegas Golden Knights, who are having this wonderful season. Now, to tell you the truth also, on the goal that you just heard, the Kevin Fiala game winner, that was one that, that's your classic. You have the puck one side and then just through the back door. The goalie cannot get in position. He's got to look first at this side, and then you just shove it out in this case to the left side, and Fleury just cannot move that fast and go over. It's just not physically possible. Open net, you've got a second to hit it. There you go. 1-0 Predators. They get to within 2 points of first. First overall in the Western Conference, that is. So, you look at this, and it was a big victory because otherwise the Vegas Golden Knights would have swept the Predators, and what would that have meant going into the playoffs? It really would have established the Golden Knights, the expansion team in their first year, as the team to beat. But anyway, now you have 2 points. This can be made up for the next half of the season by the Predators easily. And when your backup goalie puts out the 43 saves and wins the game, and for that matter, maybe the Achilles heel of the Golden Knights, power play. Saturday they were 0 for 6 against the Oilers. Yesterday 0 for 4 against the Predators. You know that the Predators, PK Subban, although eventually Crosby gave a little better than he got from Subban at the end of that Stanley Cup playoffs, let's face it. There was that big moment late in the series where Crosby roughed up Subban, and I thought that was a tremendous turning point in the Stanley Cup Finals last year. But even so, Predators can involve themselves in a physical game, and wouldn't that behoove them if the Golden Knights are getting 43 shots against them? And then realize that the odds are, if you're 0 for your last 10 on the power play, if these two teams do, and what will the power play be like for the Golden Knights as the season goes on? I don't know, but possible Achilles heel. Possibly showing, if you rough up, you play that old mucking and grind, and, that's a horrible Canadian accent. That kind of game, maybe you can beat the Golden Knights. Again, I thought the Golden Knights I didn't realize they're going to be this good, but I've said this, and if you're just tuning in or something, Marc-Andre Fleury going to the Golden Knights, acquiring him was just like the Florida Panthers on their inception acquiring John Van Beesbrook. That strong goalie, you had a chance in every game. And this was a 1-0 game, so obviously the Golden Knights had a chance. And Beezer put the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup, beating Mario Lemieux's Penguins, for crying out loud, in the semifinals back in 1996. Fleury has, although he has split time and Matt Murray has really been more or less the goalie of record in the Penguins' last 2 Stanley Cup championships, you know what? It's not like Fleury never played. It's not like Fleury didn't have his moments. He did. And for that matter, it's not like Marc-Andre Fleury hasn't won a Stanley Cup when it was his game, when it was his team. He did back in 2009. So, they've got the goalie. They've got the guy that you can win if he gets hot in the playoffs with the Golden Knights. Question is, if the Golden Knights have the scoring attack and enough of it to score on the power play. Now, the trade deadline is coming up. Interesting, Alex Doherty of On the Forecheck does not believe the Predators should be real big players. He likes them to stay with the cards that they have, so to speak. I'll talk to him about that tomorrow. But this was a big victory for the Predators. It really proved, I think, that they could make another return to the Cup. And it also proved that they had some depth because, it wasn't Pekka Rinne in net. It was the backup, UC Saros, coming up with the biggest victory of the year, 43 saves, 1-0, just plain old impressive. One final note about this hockey game. Again, as I try to teach the Tri-Cities hockey, and I dream of, I talked a little bit before at the start of the show, the John Robert Bell mini-dome. Maybe that could be the case. But, and I spoke of how while certainly the Buccaneers are married to their current football stadium, it seems like they're going to stay at Freedom Hall, but it's not a definite, you know? Still got a couple more years on the contract. And then, and we talked about this to Richard Sanders on the show, and I asked him, what about the long-range plan of an arena? And he said, yeah, that's the next thing we're looking at. That would be so huge. I've talked about it. I've talked about how it would be more concerts coming to town. A building for everyone, not just ETSU basketball, but also with a new arena, because Freedom Hall, and for that matter, Viking, they don't have the floor space to have a hockey rink. You need 200 feet there. But a new arena you could, and then you could bring in a minor league hockey team, and that would really be, I mean, you want to talk about cosmopolitan, going through sports, growing through sports, as for that matter, Las Vegas has. Well, I thought it was a gambling idea. Yeah, it was, but it was also the great prize fights. Don't discount the run of UNLV. Oscar Goodman, the mayor there, wanted pro sports and tennis. Like, what don't we have in Las Vegas? We've got everything. This is the greatest city in the world. He'll tell you that. He's from Haverford, PA, by the way. But he'll go in and discuss this. He said, the one thing we didn't have are real pro sports teams. So boom, now you got the Golden Knights. In a few years, they'll get the Raiders. I'm not too happy about the latter, but the former is pretty decent. And the fact of the matter is, Johnson City, Kingsport, Bristol, they're not getting, an NFL team. It's fortunate to have the NASCAR track. But growing through sports, yeah, what would it mean to have a minor league hockey team here and an ECHL team higher ranking than the surrounding communities of Roanoke, Asheville, and Knoxville have? I've said it until I'm blue in the face. I'm going to keep saying it. It's something that we ought to think about here. So if you got some money and you want to make an investment here, call me up here at the station at 423-743-6123. We'll make it work. But yes, I mean, I can speak about it on the microphone. It might be in my best interest to contact some of the moneyed interests here and discuss that. But that new arena is something that I think that ETSU needs. And then you could have, something for a new generation, if you will. And something that would be, like I said, bigger than the surrounding communities. And frankly, the Tri-Cities, oftentimes, when I speak of Knoxville, Asheville, and Roanoke, what do I say? Oftentimes, it comes in fourth place behind those communities. Now, it pretty much is thought of as fourth place behind those communities. A higher-ranking sports franchise could go a long way in changing that perception. Trust me on that. Adding that to a NASCAR track, oh yeah, that would be huge. And a new arena doesn't just help the sports fans. Like I said, you'll have concerts, you'll have religious services, you'll have circuses, you'll have all sorts of events there, speaking engagement, that's what a new arena would do. Anyway, so I want people to get behind the Predators or the Hurricanes, or for that matter, the Montreal Canadiens. Just because if you do, then that creates a demand for something that could be so special to this community. Absolutely. I mean, you want to talk about putting it on the map. There you go. But I say that, and this was a 1-0 hockey game that we just had. Yet how exciting it was. And it goes back to my philosophy of high scoring is not necessarily more exciting. That hockey game last night could have changed at any moment. You didn't know what was going to happen. The Predators getting the puck in the net 3 minutes after they were stymied by Fleury, and you said, well, they're just not going to score. They're not getting the shots. This just isn't going to, That shows you the excitement that even a low-scoring hockey game can have. That exerting yourself, that trying to step up, that maybe even a defenseman will try to get into the scoring column. I've seen it happen in the low-scoring hockey games. Everybody who's seen hockey games has seen that happen. And that's one of the excitements of the sport. And for that matter, I mean, think of baseball. A 1-0 pitcher's duel. I know now with the over-specialization, maybe not as much as before, but you used to have, the two great pitchers going at it. I can remember, in my youth, and gosh, this is 35 years ago, but I can remember Steve Carlton and Fernando Valenzuela going at it, and a 1-0 Phillies victory. And Tommy Lasorda calling for a bunt in the first inning because he knew 1 run would win it. And you just knew at any moment could the winning run score. That's low scoring. Low scoring means close. Now compare that to, say, the football game, Jaguars and Steelers. It's 45-42, but that was never a competitive game. It was 21-0 Jaguars, for crying out loud. I guess the Steelers got to within 7 at one point. But so what? That never was really a competitive game. High scoring. But don't you see, high scoring in hockey could mean 10-0. Oh, yeah, oh, look, 2 people got hat tricks. Something to watch for, I give you, but 1-0, anything can happen at any moment. I know a lot of people were critical, for instance, of the Jaguars-Bills game, a 10-3 contest. But I looked at the fast pace of it. I looked at the fact that although it was a tremendous defensive game, so really you had a circumstance where at any point, a pick six could win it. Doug Marrone going for it on 4th and 1 late in the game when a field goal would have put him up by 3. Very interesting. The strategy worked. The strategy also knocked out the Buffalo Bills from ever winning that game. Low-scoring game, lots of strategy, competitive, close. Again, compare that to, or for that matter, 15-10. Eagles beat the Falcons. Falcons are stymied on the goal line last play of the game. Fast pace, because it was low scoring, not a lot of clock stoppages. There was something to that game that was great. So, yes, was the relatively high-scoring 29-24 game between the Saints and the Vikings. Sometimes it works out that way. But a low-scoring game is always competitive. And we found that out with the Predators. And so remember that when you have people that talk about, we need more scoring in here. That probably means your sport is going to have more lopsided games. And finally, and I've said this before, look at the explosion of soccer in this country. Millennials know the ball game will last only 2 hours. And they know that it will always be, at any time, the game will be in doubt because it is low scoring. And I think that there's something to be said about that. And so, baseball, when you're talking about, we need a DH. No, you don't. You should do away with it immediately. Due to the fact that nothing, and I love baseball, it's my favorite sport, but those 13-7 4-hour American League games, yeah, you got to really love baseball to get into those. Tri-City Sports now. We're going to come back. I got some more hockey talk, as a matter of fact, but stuff that explains the culture of hockey and why I think it's more in tune with East Tennessee than some other sports. I'll explain that to you when we come back on Tri-City Sports Now.
Gold status. You'll